In 2014-2015, my Polish partner and I travelled from Australia to Poland without flights. We decided to travel in this way because we were interested in how Australia connects with Europe and what actually lies in between. We chose to hitchhike as much of the way as we could because we believed this would be the best way to get to know something about the places we were moving through and the people of those places. It also meant that we had a lot of interesting adventures along the way. We sailed in a small boat to East Timor during the cyclone season. We stayed in tribal small villages in the jungles. We slept in nomadic tents. We were served dog meat for dinner. And in Mongolia in August, we were wearing sandals when it started to snow. But did these exotic stories actually tell you something about the world? Or do they just catch your attention because it's so different from what we know at home? So this photo is taken in Australia, the country I come from, on the Aboriginal community of Palm Island. People in the surrounding towns were telling us not to visit the island, that it might be dangerous, and that the residents might be hostile towards us visiting. But in actual fact, we were welcomed there, and it became one of the most educative experiences on the trip for me. I learned a lot about my own country and a history that I hadn't been taught in school. We're still in touch with our friends there on Palm. A subsistence farming village in Indonesia, where people very rarely see money. There was no electricity, nobody spoke English, and they practiced traditional dances to bring about a good harvest. But when I think back to the time I spent in this village, it isn't the lack of money or their standard of living that comes to my mind. It's the great time that we spent together, sitting up late into the night, talking and laughing together, sharing stories. The feeling of being amongst friends. Jurek didn't win the chess game. On to Tibet, where we were shocked by how commercialism and the tourist industry is actually corroding the culture there. Caught in this flow of tourism, we felt that we couldn't do anything but look at the beautiful views and spend money to have experiences. Until we met Kenjutsa, an amazing local girl from a small town there who was persistent enough to learn English. She opened her home to us, introduced us to her family, and showed us her life. We're still in touch, and she tells me that she's opening an NGO in her small town at the moment. As we approached Russia, I was a bit apprehensive as to how I might be perceived as a foreigner coming from the West. But the truth was that the openness and hospitality Russians showed me blew me away. Russians were really curious about me as a foreigner. And once we were hitchhiking, a 30-year-old truck driver stopped and picked us up. And we had an amazing experience that we were the first foreigners he had met in his whole life. It was exciting for both of us. In Russia, it was the first country where my physical appearance didn't give me away instantly as a foreigner. And I found that the large European cities with vibrant cultural life reminded me much of my cities at home. However, when it came to talking about freedom of speech, I found that my friends there are having a very different experience, and protesting things that I take for granted can be very dangerous for them. So finally, we reached PL, Poland, our goal, after thousands of kilometers, standing on roadsides and over a year traveling. But what have I really learnt from crossing half the world in this way? Well, too often we hear travel stories told in this exotic way about others who live in distant places with lives so different from our own. What could we possibly have in common? But my experiences showed me that you can actually meet people like you in the most unlikely places. In fact, it's possible that you could have more in common with someone from a small town in Mongolia or somebody who lives in a bamboo hut in Indonesia than you might with somebody who lives in your own home city. Because our nationality, our culture, our faith are only the exterior layers of our true self. However, there are differences, and these come in the burdens against us. This might be financial difficulties, access to mobility, discrimination we face, or political situations against us. As a traveller, it's important to be aware of these situations. But travel is an extremely important thing because it gives the possibility for people from different places to meet and have a two-way exchange. And by meeting these others, we realize we're not so different actually. And then the fear is gone. So, this is me in Krakow. And when I think back over my journey, it isn't the exotic stories that come flooding back to me. It's the friends that I made. Thank you.